You're listening to the AV-IT Amplifier. Each week, we'll feature voices and ideas that need to be amplified in the higher education and pro-AV IT communities. This show is brought to you by higheredav.com. And now here's your host, Ryan Gray.
Well, hello, everybody. It is your host, Ryan, and my dog Pepper, if you can see Pepper in the background or not, I don't know. A special episode again for you today to celebrate New Year's Day, the first day of 2025. We take a look back at some of the memorable conversations that we've had over this past year in 2024, and listen to some cool voices from across the country and from around the world. So enjoy this episode. We will be back next week with a brand new episodes to kick off 2025. I hope everyone is well, and take it easy and hang in there.
Hi, Ryan. Thank you for having me back. I feel super honored to be the first ever return guest. I am Britt Yenser, CTS. I work at Moravian University in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania as the Director of Event Technology. I am also the host of the Brave Space podcast, a writer for Higher Ed AV, and I'm currently the Communications Chair for HETMA. Yeah, so straight up, closed mouths don't get fed. So if you don't open up and say, this is something that I want, then people have no way of knowing that you want it, and therefore you probably won't get it. Like, by and large, this is a generalization, but I feel pretty comfortable saying people aren't mind readers. So they have no way of knowing what's going on in your head and what you want. And also, people are the main character of their own narrative. I think that David Foster Wallace explains that really well in his commencement speech, This is Water, which if you haven't watched or listened to This is Water, I highly recommend it. But yeah, people, they don't know what's going on with you. They don't know what your goals are. They don't know what you want. So unless you open your mouth and say, like, I would like to be nominated for this thing, I would like if you voted for me, like, there's a pretty high chance that you won't get that.
Yeah, so you're 100% right about all that. And it seems like you explained it, and I'm sure because, well, yeah, that's kind of true. But in practice, that sort of self-promotion can be really difficult for people. It can be, and aside from like the feelings of imposter syndrome that almost it calls immediately up, but the idea that how could I ever say I think I'm better than other people at this? You're not supposed to talk that way. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be, humble or demure, or, you know what I'm saying, wait around for somebody to pull you in. How do you think about that dichotomy of people who might say, well, actually, that's impolite to go about saying, I want this and I think I should have it?
Yeah, so there's a few things to unpack there. I think that it's more challenging for women than it is for men, because women, per gender roles and gender standards, are typically told that they should be, more quiet, more demure, that it's a feminine quality to take a seat. And I am hopeful that we as a society can start to break out of that stereotype and that expectation. I think it also has to do with anyone, any gender, how you were raised. So if your family saw you as a child, like, children should not be present, be quiet, whatever, you don't really get a voice, that could be internalized. And that goes back to a lot of psychology and therapy of, like, healing your inner child and allowing yourself to open up and use your voice. And to speak to imposter syndrome or imposter phenomenon, I am guilty of calling it imposter syndrome, but I'm trying to revert back to its original phrasing of imposter phenomenon, because it's not a syndrome. You're not sick. Like, it is a phenomenon that has been created by society and by the places that we sit, and anyone can experience that. And I think that it's really important to be able to place yourself in a place or in a group of people that remind you of your skill set, of your capabilities, and don't make you feel like you don't have a right or ability to do something.
Wow, that's a lot. You're totally right about it. Okay, so let's dive down a couple of those.
I know,
pathways.
I gave you a lot right there.
But I asked you like a 7-sentence question. So, you know what I'm saying? You actually remembered all the parts and then went through all of them. Like, you know, that's what I'm saying. Talk about thought leader. You can hold more than one thought in your head. I just have to dump them all out there and see what happens. So,
sure, Ryan. My name is Chris Hewitt. I am the manager for Classroom Technical Infrastructure at the University of Guelph. I've been on a couple of other podcasts, so you may hear me going from podcast to podcast from time to time. Manage the audiovisual for a 30,000 student university. Got about 450 spaces across campus where AV is equipped. Lots of moving and shaking going on campus all the time, just like all those listeners out there who are in higher ed. We're just always involved, go, rock'em sock'em all the time.
So that kind of goes beyond a thesis, almost to a manifesto and a call to action
it was
at
a
the
manifesto.
end.
Absolutely.
It was. So
yeah.
Where did that come from? Why is this something you're so passionate about?
My own frustration. I mean, you and I talked about this at Infocom last year on the show floor. Like, why are IT and AV not collaborating more and more, right? So I put some ideas into it, and I said, Chat GPT, write me a thing. And then I took it from there and redacted it and adjusted it and massaged it and made it more oomph, if you will, right? I had to get it from somewhere.
Right.
So I use ChatGPT. Use your tools. ChatGPT is a tool. Use a tool. So full disclosure, I use ChatGPT to help me with that.
You're not supposed to tell people that. You know what I'm saying?
No, I believe in transparency. So this is me being transparent. But the ideas are my own. The creation and putting the proper words together, maybe not so much. But the idea was IT and AV need to come together for the end user, full stop. You can't wait. When something goes down, especially in higher ed, you can't wait. So that's the call to action. Like, get together with your IT departments, your network team, your server infrastructure team, if they have a network operations center, leverage it. Geez, just leverage it. Put all the alerts into there. Get your SNMP traps going. Now we're getting technical, but yeah,
it's good.
You know what I mean? Just get it done. Get it done. So yeah.
How has that then played out for you? Is this something that you have been able to do? Something you dream about doing? Would you specifically use the word journey in there? Join me on this journey. So, what has your journey been like trying to unify AV and IT?
Ouch. You have resistors on both sides of the fence, if you will. You need to cut that fence down and bring the two together and say, listen, you're on the same island. Get it going. This isn't an episode of Survivor here, right? Mm-hmm. You need to break down those fences and the traditional ways of doing it and get people to see the vision together. And it's really hard. As a leader, it is hard to stamp out and get rid of those proverbial blockers, if you will, right? Those people who are resistors, they want to do it the way it's always been done for 20, 30 years and move forward, right? The fact of the matter is everything needs to sit on the network because that's going to be the cheapest way to transport. So, whether you're transporting it from an equipment rack in the classroom up to the projector or halfway around campus, or you're broadcasting on a web conference, right? You need to be able to get it onto the network. So work together with your network folks. When you have quality issues, when you have jitter happening on your Microsoft Teams or your Zoom calls, you need to be able to work with them instantaneously to get it addressed, right? So when things go wrong, you need everybody at the table to help you fix it. And that's really it. So one of the things I've been working on the side of my desk, just on the side, is actually the AVIXA Audiovisual Network Professional exam.
Yeah.
So I've been intimately involved with that exam creation process, and it launched back in, I want to say, started December. They started beta testing people for it, and I know that in April they're going to be doing a passing mark review score. So I actually wrote some of the questions on there because my background is IT. Actually, I fell into AV just like everybody else. And said, "Oh, we're doing this AV stuff," and I just kind of morphed into that about 10, 15 years ago. And, everything's sunshine and, puppy dogs since then. So it's great. Yeah.
I am Ann Kelly. I am the Assistant Manager of Special Events and Classroom Technologies for Yale School of Medicine, Upper Division, Research, Study, all that great stuff.
What is a question that you wish people would ask of you, but nobody ever does?
If they asked me what I truly thought and, what do you really think, and tell me an honest answer. That whole phrase right there, because it means, like, if you really want honesty, you might not like what comes out of my mouth. If you don't ask me what I'm really thinking, I might not give it because I might not feel it's my place too. Right. So it's one of those things. I like that extrovert thing is I'm so afraid to offend. That's something like we could probably spend another hour on. I would have loved to do this if I didn't feel like I was going to offend somebody bringing up topic X, bringing up situation Y. And so we get a little quiet. We don't possibly say those things all the time that maybe we should. And then we regret it later on when the thing that's in your head is actually plays out and you go, I knew that was going to happen. I should have prevented whatever it was, either a bad purchase, a bad design, or, not, it's just something is not capable of doing something what someone promised. And you go, and that's, I shoulda, woulda, coulda. Don't live there. Ask, if see an opportunity to be opinionated with reason and logic, it's not being it's avoiding train wrecks.
Yeah. People to want the answer regardless of whether they're going to like it or not, because the real answer is better than the likable answer. And
and that's the thing.
Lots of times people ask. Sorry, I didn't mean to, we're talking about asking a question and they don't really want the answer to it.
Yeah, they don't. It's like I don't want to offend, or I love the energy going on, but if this train keeps on this track, I see this happening, you know, and that's it. That's that extrovert. And it's like so funny because that wraps up extrovert, introvert, and trust, like all in one thing, in one question. Well, if you really want my opinion, but I'm so afraid to offend you. Yeah. That cool. So many layers.
We have a very special guest back for week 2, Mr. Tim Albright. Tim, how are you today?
I am fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. So, you mentioned starting out in radio.
Yeah.
Can I assume that there is some program that when, a new human is born with an amazing booming voice, they're immediately shunted towards the radio industry? Or
So I was a producer for a long time. Like, I wasn't on the air. I went to school for radio, right? Lewis and Clark Community College, which is where I actually got my AV start going back there.
Right.
And I ended up at KMOX, which was a news talk and the home of the Cardinals.
Cardinals,
right?
Yeah. My dad's a huge Cardinals fan.
Okay,
you have no idea. We could do that whole.
So don't tell him that I've not only hung out with Jack Buck, but there's that.
Yeah.
And I think that Joe Buck is still one of the best broadcasters, and you can at me all you want. There's a personal thing with that, right? Joe's from St. Louis. He still lives in St. Louis.
Yep.
Worked with him. Worked with his dad. Never worked with Joe, but I've met him, a dozen times or so. But it wasn't until I went to, at the time it was called AAA radio station. We played like Dave Matthews and Counting Crows and stuff like that in the early 2000s. And I did that because of 9/11.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. It's weird, right? So I'm a 25-year-old kid, and 9/11 happens, and I'm sitting in the producer's station at KMOX, and I'm looking around, going, "What the freak am I doing here?"
Right.
Like, I want to go have fun. The world's going to end, and I'm going to be stuck in a news talk station.
Yeah.
So went to work for a music station, right?
Yeah.
And that's how I ended up eventually on the air with them.
Cool. So how would you introduce your favorite Dave Matthews song?
That's a good question, because there's a handful of them. Because to me, okay, so my favorite Dave Matthews song has a little bit of a sad story to it, so I warned you ahead of time. Wow. Give me a second.
You're good.
I told you it was a sad story. So my sister passed away 2012 of colon cancer. And my favorite Dave Matthews song is her favorite Dave Matthews song, called Butterfly. And prior to that, it probably would have been Crash Into Me. But Butterfly is one of those weird, like, he never recorded it for a long time. It was in a weird movie called Because of Winn-Dixie.
Huh.
And Matthews plays a character in that movie. Winn-Dixie's a dog, right?
Right.
But he plays a character who just so happens to sing, right? And just so happens to have a guitar.
Right.
And he plays this silly little 60-second, 90-second song called Butterfly. And it is just, I mean, it's Dave Matthews. Have you ever heard Dave Matthews acoustic, like just him and a guitar? It's that.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, that would be my song.
First, Ryan, thank you very much for having me on the show. It's an honor and a privilege, and I hope I live up to everyone's expectations. So please lower your expectations now.
I was going to say, first I can clear that there are no expectations around here. It's tomfoolery end to end. So
Excellent. We'll be right on task then. So my name is Craig Underwood. I'm the Director of AV Engineering at Moravian University in eastern Pennsylvania. We're about an hour north of Philadelphia. For those of you that aren't, they're like, are you by Pittsburgh or Harrisburg? Or if you don't know where any of those are, that's okay. We're Philly.
most people probably can just infer that not a lot of prep work is done for this show. You know what I'm saying? But every once in a while, I'll pull something out. So I emailed Craig one question ahead of time, which was his thesis for success in the AV industry. So I'll read what you sent back, which, again, there is no wrong answer to this question, but it gives us a couple things to dive into and unpack, and which is really one of the things I wanted to do with you as you know what I'm saying, talk about an AV veteran. I know that the term Godfather has already been given to somebody else, so maybe we'll come up with another one. But it's also why I start with the question of, like, what does success look like over 19 years at the same institution? Because I think you've got a lot of perspective to share, especially with people who are maybe on the younger or the starting side of their career, or people like me who think they're younger than they are and still think they're on the starting side of their career. But what you said was the formula for success in AV includes staying humble, being curious, being persistent, and finding a way to pay it forward, which I love because that could be the formula for success in a lot of different areas and industries, not just here. So I love how it ties everything together. So let's take those down. And I'll take them out of order because you were just talking about, you have to be nimble, you have to change. When 19 years ago, you didn't need to be a network engineer to be a high-level AV engineer, and now you definitely do. So
Right.
The number 2 thing on your list is being curious. So when you think about yourself and being curious, what do you mean by that?
Well, I think there's a number of ways that you could define curiosity. Well, of course, the first way is just being curious about the new technology and thinking, okay, well, this is a tool. How can I use this tool to do what I do better, or to help people communicate better, or to serve a purpose, right? So I tend to step back and think of, like, oh, well, this device, it's a tool that does something. Does it do it better than some other way or some other tool? So when you look at things that way, instead of, oh, this thing has 8 outputs and HDCP and blah, 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 it's like, all right, well, what does that really mean? Like, what does it do? How does it benefit the design, or does it allow you to do something in a different way that ultimately benefits? So being curious that way. But curious also in terms of helping you troubleshoot things. Like, if you have to reboot some device every week, you could either just schedule a reboot every day and call it a day, and then the problem goes away because it just reboots. Or you could think, all right, well, why do I have to reboot this? Like, what's causing that? And why is this creating a problem? So then, well, let me dig into this problem. And then by doing so, you tend to learn more about what's really going on under the hood so that you can be a better designer or programmer or you name it, right? So just being curious about things and just having that, I don't know, thirst for knowledge, wanting to learn more. Because I think without that, if people want to simply learn something and then just apply it and be done with it, AV is probably not the right thing for you, because you have to keep learning and you have to want to be curious about things to keep going. I mean, just maintaining my same job, like I said, I've had to reinvent what I do, I don't know how many times, right?
Multiple times.
Yes. My name is Kameesha Jones. I'm an audiovisual project manager for Florida International University, and I also work with the Miami Heat as an audio engineer.
It's hard to tell whether it's congratulations or condolences if you win an election for those. But when we did a brief kickoff meeting with chairs last week, and there's always stuff to deal with. There's nuts and bolts. We've got programs to run. We've got stuff to do. But every once in a while we get the chance to talk a little bit more about the whys than the what's and the hows of what we're doing. And so I wanted to start that meeting off with a little, and my question was like, okay, people who are taking on committee chair roles for the first time, why on earth did you raise your hand to do that? And I won't get your answer right, but your answer involved, like, there are things I think that can be better. I think there are improvements that can be made. And to the point that you were just kind of making before at work, and if you want to see things get better, you got to jump in and get involved a little bit. So I was wondering, could you expand a little both on how did you come to be someone with that attitude? What are the things that you're looking at doing? And again, for everybody else, why on earth raise your hand to say, yes, I'll pick up the mantle of DEI chair of HEDMA?
Like I said, it was a lack, and I feel that, in the industry itself, it's not a DEI-friendly industry. And right now in our nation, I'll say that now, DEI they're trying to diminish DEI, period. So me being on that front line to say, okay, DEI is diminishing, but at the same time, we're still here. And in the meantime, I still need to bring awareness to a lot of things. A lot of things, equal pay, I have an autistic student worker, and he is brilliant. Like the things that he think of or try to troubleshoot, I was like, I would never thought of that. Like, wow. So, and also too, helping the DEI folks to navigate through the AV industry, because it is tough if you don't have that support system. So I think for me, I want to make, because HEDMA's already a very welcoming committee, and I'll say that, organization itself. So, let's bring it, a little bit more comfort as to, hey, we are here for you, and this is a safe space. We want to make sure that DEI is a safe space for you, that things like that. We're working very closely with Avixa Foundation, this year, to make sure that we have that partnership continuing with whatever, Avixa has to offer and what HEDMA has to offer. So that's into play too. And like I said, just giving that safe space, I think for me, it's just really a safe space for the DEI folks to say, hey, we're all out here and we're all doing the same thing you do. We might go through the same struggle. Let's talk about it. Let's have that type of community. And yeah, that's the really, the main focus that I really want to get to DEI, is to really just build that camaraderie and build that safe space for people to say, okay, well, I know that Kameesha has done, been in this situation. Let me talk to her about this. Or if they want to have an advancement in a role and how to go about it, by them being who they are, or, their upper management being who they are. So that's that. And also, too, I want to host a lot of, like, DI courses, or I'll say workshops.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, people might have different DEI workshop or training in their own university and things like that, and it looks different for everybody. But I think if we as a whole come together with HETMA and say, hey, you know, HETMA is hosting a DI training, and this is, you know, for everybody, the manufacturers as well as, you know, people in higher ed, they could probably take a lot of that training back to their communities, or they take it back to they might even want to hire more DEI people once that training is complete. So I think that too is, you know, a little thing that I'm definitely working on. But yeah, I was, and also too, Infocom, you know, I noticed a lot of Infocom since Vegas was my second Infocom. So I noticed a lot of lack of, I'll say, events for DEI folks, and, you know, talking with a lot of DEI folks as well too. They're just saying, hey, do you know any spot that's just for us or anything like that? And I'm like, no. So it's like, you know, making them feel included as well too. So
thank you for listening to the AV IT Amplifier. Join us again for next week's episode when we'll welcome a new guest who you'll want to hear from. We promise. Your host has been Ryan Gray. He's on the tweeters at Ryan_A_Gray, or find him on LinkedIn to connect. Please subscribe and give the show a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. This show is brought to you by higheredav.com. The views expressed here are not necessarily those of our respective institutions, employers, or sponsors. Everyone hang in there, go easy, and we'll be back next week.